We are getting to the real part of the NFL schedule, and that is Chris Long's theory, and it's a great one, so we're going to bring him in here shortly. The Ryen Russillo podcast, our Monday recap of another week in the NFL. We're going to hit it all. I'll tease it up. I also just got back from Alabama, so was there for another LSU-Bama game. This one went a little different than the last 7 or so. But first, before we do that, I want to thank our good friends at State Farm, our presenting sponsor. Today's episode of the Ryen Russillo Show is brought to you by State Farm. If you're fumbling with insurance, State Farm agents are here to help because with over 19,000 agents, they're local to you and available to help whether you connect in person by phone or through the State Farm mobile app. Agents are here to help. So go with the one that has coverage and agents you can count on. State Farm. Talk to an agent today. So let's get Long going here. Using our Google Assistant. Hey, Google, call Chris Long.
Calling Chris Long, mobile.
Hello? Who is this?
That's perfect. Chris, it's your buddy Rye. We're going to talk.
We got a podcast.
Yeah, that's right. We got to talk. We got to talk shop here. And to run through today's itinerary, we have headlines. Yours is bigger picture. Mine's on the Browns. The plane rides. We're going to do a little Minnesota, a little Dallas. The LSU stuff from out on the road in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Rams dead. Surprise Steelers. Irresponsible question of the week. And a new thing called Confessionals, where mine may bum some people out, and then we'll end it with a history lesson on a new book that I'm reading. All right, so Chris, you go first. Give me your first headline.
My headline's a little unconventional. I think this is the day that the NFL took the lead over college football for me from a fandom experience, and I've always liked college football more because of the volume, the unpredictability, and just the fact that you can turn on your TV at noon and you don't have to stop watching till 1 a.m., as I did Saturday night watching, I think it was San Jose State. I shouldn't be watching that game, but I am. Virginia got the win, but Sunday was like a really cool day yesterday. Hadn't seen a day like this. You know, it's after Halloween. As players, we always say this is when kind of football really starts, and the season has absolutely started. I'll start Sunday night and then rewind. It's daylight savings football. You see Aaron Rodgers with sideways sleet and flurries, airing it out in Green Bay. In a game with playoff implications, you're toggling back and forth between watching the Rams' demise in a one-score football game that's just chaos in Pittsburgh, in a great atmosphere. And the moment, though, that I knew this shit was crazy was when I'm watching Ryan Tannehill engineer his third game-winning drive of the season in about 3 games, which is second in the league, by the way, behind Russ and Josh Allen. And I'm looking on the other TV. I'm trying to keep up with everything. My ADD can't handle it. And I've got Detroit with a backup quarterback driving to tie a ball game with Chicago. If you'd have told me that in September, I would have never believed it. You got a 2nd and goal for Cleveland, under 2 minutes on the other TV, going in to try to beat the Bills. Well, it was more of a contest of who wanted to lose it. And the Jets are in a one-score game. If you care about that, the Bucs are in a one-score game. It's all simultaneous. Like, you can't beat it. There's no other situation, and this is why the NFL is king, where every game, it's like this grip of death that pulls the games back closer, and you're in these one-score ball games, and it's just the volume and the stimulation, you can't beat it. And then the Sunday night game's great too. So this is when football gets real. I've experienced as a fan now for the first time. I'm totally down with November football. It was fun as a player. It's fun as a fan. You know, you're figuring out who teams are. Philly looks like they're improving. Minshew mania is over. Indy's fading because of injuries. And Baltimore kicker. is he? Yeah. Well, he also didn't throw 3 picks yesterday though.
No, but I mean, we're talking specific kicks that you'd expect him to make here.
I mean, no doubt about it. And he's and for a team like Indy, who's won a lot of one-score games, he's missed a couple big kicks. So, you know, Detroit's fading. Baltimore's even more legit than we thought. This is fun, man. Like I was really cool with retirement, but really enjoying watching Sunday football, which I was kind of like, I got to do this for a living. I don't enjoy it as much Saturday. I kind of get it now.
Yeah, yesterday really was one of those moments. And the Chiefs field goal not working out. the goal line stuff. I'm going to get to Cleveland here a little bit. I'm not going to just rehash everything that you said there, but it's always this thing about the sport and why I like it, but it also can be incredibly frustrating because unless a quarterback is hurt, or maybe if it's like a real brand name franchise type NFL defensive player, which are there 10 of those guys that are just part of the general consciousness. You can have like 4 or 5 injuries that are huge injuries that no one talks about. And then people will be like, well, what's wrong with this team? And if the quarterback and their best defensive player is still healthy and playing, then it's almost like overlooked. We're like, no, this team has like no offensive line depth, or this team's down 3 guys in the secondary. And now you're starting to see this second part of the season where the injuries take their toll in a way that I don't know that we always do a great job from the outside of understanding. I mean, I don't expect every single person that's in the business to be memorizing everybody's injury report, but it'll happen sometimes on those primetime games. You're like, wait a minute, they're missing like 5 guys right now. And if it's not the quarterback, or if it's not the most famous, receiver, running back, or say defensive lineman, it can be really overlooked. And there can be teams that it's just simple as, we have too many injuries. It's week 10. It's week 11.
You get hooked in.
Yeah.
You get hooked in. You get hooked into the headline, which is, I'm looking at a Pittsburgh game, and I've been guilty of this, not paying enough attention and giving Pittsburgh enough respect this year. You look at it on the surface, the Rams have gotten right offensively lately. They're going up there. Perfect example. This is a must win for them, and we'll get to that in a bit. Like, they don't win this game, they're in trouble, which they are now on Monday morning in November here. But you look at that, you're like, how do we expect the Rams to win this game? The matchup up front is terrible, and they're missing a couple guys. They lose the center and the right tackle. Like, this stuff matters. And we can say what we want about Goff, but there's countless examples around the league right now where, as you mentioned, these supporting roles are coming down with injuries, and it's changing who these teams are. And the styles of play differ in November and December. Some teams don't have styles that play in September. Some teams don't have styles that play later in the year.
My headline's the Browns. They get their first home win, and I'm not telling you it was beautiful. And if you only watched the game on Twitter, you would have thought they were down 100-0. Freddie Kitchens has entered I'm not going to call it the transfer portal. We should come up with something else.
He's in the portal.
Yeah, he's in the portal. We need to come up with a title of what it is. What is it? Like the doubt portal, or
just some sort of portal where he could be up in a tree stand before the end of the year.
Yeah, but it's got to be. It happened with Gruden. It's happened with other people. It's happening with Jason Garrett. It happened with the Cowboys again.
The meme portal.
I don't even know if it's the meme portal, but it's just everybody is on the same page and we're going to crush you. And look, I'm guilty of it with Freddie Kitchens too. I made my Cabela's joke when he was in the hoodie last week. So I'm not saying that I'm immune to it, but the way it played out, you would have thought Cleveland was losing to 100-0 to a group of 5 team. And it's a Bills team that, let's face it, if you're a Bills fan, even you probably deep down were like, how good is this team going to be? They're having problems now with a run defense has been going on for a few weeks, but the Browns get a win where if you look at who they've been this season, it's been a huge disappointment, maybe the biggest disappointment of any NFL team based just on the hype that they embraced. They weren't afraid of it. I'm not telling you that they were supposed to be afraid of it. I did not have them in the playoffs, but it was too soon for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I think when I thought about doing a segment on my show where we looked at the teams that were closer than you think. And it's a little early in the season for that, so I'm learning to save that segment for when it actually matters. But, that's what happens when you're the EP, man. But I'm looking at the Browns, and I'm saying this is a team that fairly soon can be competitive. They already are in spots. I did a little thing last week where we talked about how they haven't quite settled into how to use their personnel. I think that's been changing all year long. Warren Sharp talked about success rate in 12 versus 11, and they've been so 11 dominant. Kitchens played with the pony personnel a lot yesterday. With Hunt coming back, they were in the pony personnel for 28 out of 65 snaps. Like, that's way more than they'd been in 20 or 21 on the year. The league average is under 10%, but they did that really well. Chubb ran for almost all of his 116 yards with Hunt on the field. So this is an evolving situation. And last week I'm saying, okay, I'm going to wait, or I'm not going to wait, and I'm gonna make the determination. I think Kitchens should go before the end of the year. But he has an opportunity here now with a full deck. No excuses. You've got another really good weapon in the backfield to show some progress through the year. And I do think that last year what they had with Greg Williams late in the year was discipline. The pre-snap stuff was down. They knew where you stood on stuff. They took some of the ownership away from the players. And what they've done this year, they've trended more towards acquiring talent and renting out guys and not necessarily focusing on the discipline on the team and asking Baker to do too much. That's the Browns. I think they're closer than people think, but I still think they're going to actually have to blow it up at the end of the year. I'll give Kitchens the chance to progress offensively, but I think there's going to be a coaching change at some point. Baker's shown you what he can do in the right situations. They're closer than you think. They got nice pieces on defense, but the Browns are dead, man. I mean, like they're not a team that's going to make a run. They're living off of one close loss to the Pats, which is par for the course for them, even in bad years.
That didn't feel close. I don't know. You really feel like watching that game?
It felt close to me. It felt close to me because Tom wasn't on, and when Tom wasn't on, and New England needed a touchdown, I think it was on a punt block to win that game, and they ran the ball in New England. And Josh had some moments, especially coming out of the half. But the Bills are done. They're scoring, even with the improvements they made the second half of last year and into this year in spurts, like they're scoring 18 points a game. Like over the past few years, if you look at 18 to 19 points a game, I read an article where, the average is 6 victories for teams that are scoring at that click. They're living off one close loss. I got to give
you're talking about the Bills' close loss to New England.
Yeah.
I thought you said the Browns.
I'm talking about the Bills' close loss.
Okay.
No, but the Bills on the other side of it, I think this is more about it's not that great a win. I know we're looking at it and saying like, hey, big win for the Browns, like maybe they're trending the right way. I'll say give them a chance with a full deck, but the Bills, I don't believe in them. When you're a team that can't score and stop the run, that's not a good combination into November and December. But I will give Tre'Davious White props. He shadowed Beckham all day. He's been a really bright spot for them. I like watching him. He playing through the hands in the end zone on Beckham. There's some guys on that Buffalo team who don't get enough attention, and I'm certainly not disrespecting them because that's just kind of how they're built right now.
Yeah, and when you look at Cleveland, they played the toughest schedule in the NFL right now. It's through this week, and then the rest of the way, it's the 31st toughest. So second easiest is the better way to go ahead and say that. But it's not like all of a sudden I think the Browns are good. I'm not telling you to stop making Freddie Kitchens jokes. I'm not telling you that the offensive line is good. And the goal line stand that was just ridiculous, and everybody saying the only reason they got any points out of all those goal line stands is because of a false start where they got backed up and had to go ahead and kick it. But it's a win.
That was comical.
Team. Right. But at least
they do. He does walk his way into some of these jokes.
Yeah, right. They were only penalized 4 times. They threw it to Odell Moore, and they got the Chubb and Hunt thing going using both of those guys.
They got the Chubb thing going. And to your – listen, they're going to play a lot worse teams now. The one thing they haven't done well this year, and they did it yesterday, is they won close one-score ball games at a high click the second half of the year. Last year, I think they were 3-1. They were 0-3 to this point, I think, before they pulled that win out. And I felt like yesterday was more of a – and it was ironic because these are traditionally the kind of – the fan bases that have suffered the most. It was like, no, I don't want to win this game. Do you want to win this game? Do you want to win this game? It was like a tug of war. Like, no, I'd rather lose. Like that was what this game was more about to me than, hey, the Browns are getting right. And I'm certainly not saying you're making that determination.
No, and if you look at some of the stuff today and trying to figure out who's what in the AFC, and this has been kind of a theme all season long here with these standings, but Pats, Ravens 1 and 2. Houston's at 3, Kansas City's at 4, even with that loss. Buffalo's still a playoff team, technically here, and Pittsburgh's actually in, which sounds nuts. I'm not even telling you like Cleveland at 3 and 6. Look out, they're dangerous. They're just playing easier teams the rest of the way after playing the toughest schedule of everybody else. And if Baker is able to kind of have this moment on the sideline with Freddie Kitchens where it looks like they're actually enjoying themselves, that I actually saw that as a positive. But all right.
It does. It bodes well for the future. We'll see what happens.
All right. Keep it moving here. The Sunday nighter, Dallas and Minnesota, 2 quarterbacks that no matter what happened, one was going to be like, I don't know about this guy versus Kirk Cousins, who got the win. He got the win in a primetime game. You get the win against a team with a winning record. It's Minnesota's first win against another team with a winning record. I think away from home. Like the numbers on that were kind of crazy when you looked at all that stuff. Right. Just that you're like, wait a minute, how long has Minnesota gone without this? And Cousins was awesome. And that's without Thielen. They're missing a couple other guys. But really what this comes down to, Chris, is that Dallas, with the football late in this game, a couple options there after Dak had been incredible on these long drives. He was unbelievable on these 3rd and long. I mean, like a special kind of game from Dak converting all of these third and longs. His overall numbers are 28 of 46 for 397, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Kirk was really good. Didn't have to throw it as much because Dalvin Cook, who now is the league's leading rusher, just 9 yards away from 1,000, 10 games in, 10 touchdowns. He's been everything we thought he would be. And yet Dallas went to Zeke, and then it turns into Zeke, who didn't have a good game. It becomes a Monday, and because it's Dallas, it's always a little bit extra, but Dallas's loss becomes a Monday morning play-calling expert debate show.
Well, I think a few things. I think we're warranted in talking about the coaching last night in Dallas, for sure. Listen, the game came down to them getting tight in the red zone. They've been pitching the ball all over the yard. Dak had a brilliant game. If he plays like that, he is a top 5 quarterback if he plays like that. That's a top 5 quarterback performance. Great on the run, hitting Cooper on the sideline, the Gallup touchdown. He made a lot of great throws and, outplayed Kirk. The irony here is that Kirk got the primetime win and played just fine. I mean, 220 through the air, 2 touchdowns, really good in the low red. That was a big deal. Had some really nice throws down low, which is really tough. The field shrinks.
He is one of your guys. I think you more consistently. I'm not saying you're saying he's the number 1 thrower of the football because no one's taking that from Mahomes. But
no, but we got to stop shitting on him. I mean, I had a guy. Yeah,
you have throws with Cousins that you're impressed every week with him, like beyond other guys. I've noticed. Yeah, I
am, and I talked. When I talked to Malcolm Jenkins, he came on that Thursday night show I'm doing with Amazon, and he said it on air. He's like, I am really impressed with Cousins, and I think he's a really good player. I think there's a fan misconception. If you spend time on Twitter, that you're going to pile on certain people, and Kirk's become, he's in that meme portal.
All right,
from a player standpoint.
Yeah.
It's that portal where, it's just low-hanging fruit, and you're going to go at Cousins. And there are some numbers that show, which I'll talk about later. I was going to hit it this week on my deal is like, he's been better in prime time than people think. But listen, he hasn't gotten the win. You mentioned the road record for them. I think it was since 2016. They still haven't won a game outside against a team with winning record on the road. But last night they got that big win against Dallas. And listen, even if Dak outplayed him, Dak is a damn good quarterback and Dallas is a good team. Although Dallas has only beaten one team with a winning record. And Orlovsky was on there this morning. He was like, hey, listen, Tampa, Cleveland, Atlanta have all beat more teams with winning records. I would disagree, though, that you would think Tampa, Cleveland, or Atlanta could make a real run at this thing in January. That's the only problem I have with that point, because I do think Dallas is just as talented as, say, in New England, but the coaching is what's holding them back. I mean, you put that team with Bill Belichick last night, they're winning that ball game. The slow starts, the coaching at the end, the punt return thing. I talked to a special teams coach in the NFL who said a lot of coaches are more trending towards being conservative in situations like that, calling for the fair catch. But like in New England, because they're so deep on the back third of their team, are really good on special teams, they might look at it as a weapon. That picture was pretty damning in looking at the alley that Tavon had to run up the sideline with about 30 seconds to go. So there were a lot of coaching blunders. The Cowboys have made trades for Bennett, Quinn. Lawrence plays his ass off. I'm glad they were talking about him last night. They got something out of Lee. Minnesota defense, not going to be happy with last night, but Kendricks played well. And Dallas has got an easy schedule, as we mentioned. I still think they're a good football team, but to this point, this was a big opportunity that they squandered, and they let the Eagles back in it. And Kirk didn't have to be spectacular, as you mentioned. I mean, Cook had like 90 yards receiving on screens, but I'm not here to shit on Kirk. He did what you asked him to do. He won, and it wasn't a low-scoring game. A shootout with the Cowboys on the road.
Are you talking to me directly, or are you talking to just the
I'm talking to people.
Yeah, because I'm not afraid of pointing out that I don't think Cousins is all that, but he got that win.
No, I don't think. Yeah. Where is he? Where is he in the NFL? I mean, without like pulling out, he's not a top 5 quarterback by any means.
No, he's not top 10.
But he's not a bottom half quarterback.
No, that's fine.
We're looking at Jared Goff in the other game. I'd take Cousins over Jared Goff in a heartbeat, and that's not because of the recent developments. That's just, it's kind of what I believe.
Who would you rather have, Cousins or Stafford?
Probably Stafford. I've always liked Stafford, and Stafford has really played well this year. It's just a shame they can't ever put it all together.
Yeah, they're a mess right now. And he's hurt bad. Like, people are going, this dude, you don't understand how tough Stafford is. And it's this back injury that they're like, it's one of those things you can't play through it. Who would you rather have, Cousins or Rosen?
Cousins, bro. And I'm not trying to diss my dog Rosen. Rosen needs to get a damn chance somewhere that's not, that's not a crumbling building. Another thing that stood out to me last night was the post game. They asked Cook. The reporter was like, "What does it feel like to be on the same field with Zeke?" I'm like,
"Oh my God.
Right now, he's the best in the league, bro. And Zeke, he's on my fantasy team. Not that anybody gives a shit. I started four guys who were on a bye yesterday.
Tell us more, though. Did you have a flex that you were like on the fence about?
I started four guys on a bye yesterday.
Oh,
that's not good.
Zeke, think how rested they'll be the rest of the way, though.
They load the box last night and forced Cousins to beat you, and Cousins beat you. I mean, he did enough to win. But the point is, Cook is the best back in the league right now from a production standpoint, and I never would have guessed it coming in the league this year.
Okay, can I ask you something, though, on the play call thing? Because I think the one that has everybody really upset is the 3rd and 2 before the 4th and 5 throw where I'm going to go and pull this up again. So they're 3rd and 2 at the Minnesota 11, and it's a 3-yard loss to the left side. And it just like, oh, I can't believe you're running Zeke. Can't believe you're running Zeke. Look what Dak has done all night. And maybe everybody's right about that, okay? Dude, I'm not even saying like everybody's wrong and I'm disagreeing here. But the center gets destroyed as soon as the ball is snapped. That play has no chance. And it's like, is it Kellen Moore? Is it Garrett? Is it those guys going away from Dak? Or is everybody just playing the results? And I'm wondering if you as a player, like, did you feel like you had a better sense of what a team should or shouldn't be doing because you were out there even more so than the coaches? Or are you doing the thing that everybody kind of does, and it's like if the play worked, it was great. If the play doesn't work, then the coach is an idiot? Because I bet you guys are probably guilty of that too as players.
Probably so, but I'm just telling you, I watched Dak pitch the ball around the yard last night like he was Joe Montana for 60 minutes, and then you're inside 2 minutes, and time is of the essence here. And they're just because, by the way, they're not using their timeouts so they can get that one more possession. So they're running the ball. They're slow to the line. They're wasting time. They get bailed out by a Minnesota timeout because they're getting ready to run their 4th down play. They don't have another play. Like, have another play, get to the line and run it. I would have much rather liked to have seen Dak with a run-pass option. I mean, in the red zone, that's what mobile quarterbacks do is they really throw a wrinkle in there. As rushers, you always have to be cognizant of running quarterbacks in the red zone because of the lanes, the field shrinks, 6 yards will kill you. That's like, I'd much rather stop the run in those situations than I would have to rush Dak and be cognizant of the rush lanes and get pressure on him.
Yeah. Okay. Good breakdown there. Because I also think there's something that's happening, and it happens all the time, is that guys get obsessed with leaving no time on the clock. And it's like, you know what? Why don't you just run your offense? And I know weird stuff happens, but another thing that I've seen too with the number of PIs that are called now, like, what's funnier than when a team's trying to waste time and then they get a PI in the red zone at the end of the game and they get a reset of the downs, and it's like, you know what, maybe it would have been nice to not waste 45 seconds here because now we'd have a little bit more flexibility with what we want to do. I think pass interference is called so much now that would make me want to be like, look, I'm just going to play and I'm not going to worry about the clock here as much as making sure this is a solid possession. It's the right plays here. Let's not have the clock be the determining factor of like, it's the end of the world if we're kicking it off to them with 20 seconds left. Yes, I know weird stuff happens, but it's likely that they're not going to score with 20 seconds left. And yet coaches, I think, get more obsessed with clock than the actual quality of play.
And then also not every situation, it's like analytics, applying them, and I'm always out of my depth talking analytics, but there you have to control for like who it is. And Green Bay, if you're giving Aaron Rodgers 45 more seconds or Russell Wilson 45 more seconds, like, yeah, be fucking very afraid. But, and I've pumped Kirk Cousins up. They did a majority of their work on the ground, and he did what he had to do to win the game through the air. But giving him the ball back, by the way, you'd presumably be up 3. That's different than being up 2. That would really scare me. You at least have a chance if in the unlikely scenario that Kirk engineers a 2-minute drill in under a minute for a long field goal, you'd still have overtime. And if you're up 2, then it gets a little scary. So I think coaches have to weigh who's waiting on the other sideline and also the time.
We're going to get to best and worst plane rides here in a second. But first, Want to tell you about our good friends at DraftKings, our friends over at DraftKings. These guys get it. They've launched an online sports book created by sports fans for sports fans. And here's real good news. If you live in Pennsylvania, it's now available for you in your state. And trust me, DraftKings is hard at work bringing their sportsbook app, which happens to be America's top-rated sportsbook app, everywhere. The DraftKings Sportsbook app has it all. Over-unders, player props, in-game betting, and special odds boost every day for the biggest games. This isn't some offshore operation like the other gambling sites. It's a legitimate sportsbook based right here in the U.S., so you can rest assured that your funds are totally secure. DraftKings, the leader in daily fantasy sports, has brought their expertise to legal sports betting. Get in on the action wherever, whenever in the Keystone State. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use the code Russillo, Russillo, when you sign up. For limited time, all new and existing users can get a deposit bonus up to $500. That's code Russillo to get a deposit bonus up to $500 only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Deposit bonus requires 25-time playthrough. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. You ready for plane rides?
I might have to call that 1-800-gambling thing because I bet Rams money line. Let's talk about the worst plane ride. Can I start with that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it was the Rams because that thing is over now.
You weren't on it, right? You weren't on that plane.
I was not on that plane ride, but I had a tough drive home from the office after I realized that I had made a bet that I had no business making because of all the reasons we discussed earlier with the matchups. But the Rams took an L on the road. You know, you score 3 points offensively. We are literally seeing the Rams transition into being a defensive football team, which is okay if you're at least adept offensively. But your run game's all over the place. Jared Goff's under siege. Yeah, that was a rough one. They're kind of out of it from a wild card standpoint. I mean, maybe they make a run. I could be wrong, but I just think that was one they had to have, and it's a long, long flight.
The way the top seeds are now in the NFC, San Francisco's your 1 seed, Green Bay, then New Orleans, Dallas, Seattle, Minnesota. But Minnesota's a game up in the loss column and 2 wins up over the Rams. So the Rams are sitting there at 7. And I mean, this is where the depth of the NFC kicks in. You're like the Rams, the Eagles, the Panthers. Those teams are out. The comeback Bears, the never quit Bears.
Let's not will this to happen.
The Bears seriously are someone that you're dating that doesn't like you and you like them, but they call you every now and then. They sort of like, you know, maybe a late night call and you're like, oh my gosh, did you call last night? Are you thinking about me? Be like, no, I was trying to order a pizza. Sorry, dude. Your name's Pete.
You are you up? Like, hey, are you up? Did you see that throw I just made in the corner of the end zone? Like, second half, I'm starting to play a little bit better.
I just feel bad for Bears fans because I see it every weekend where they're like, we suck. And I'm thinking about Big Cat right now, too. I mean, he does it every week, but there's more guys than just him where you're like, wait a minute, you know.
Yeah, but imagine not being rich, like being Big Cat, not being rich and having to squander, you know, bet on your favorite team every week, buy tickets to go to the game.
Did you just call Big Cat rich? What just happened?
I think he's rich.
Rich in friendship, or are we talking fiscal?
No, I think Big Cat's like fiscally. I think he's doing pretty good.
This is weird. This is a weird topic. This wasn't in the rundown.
Is Big Cat rich?
You think he's richer than I am? I don't know.
I don't want to touch this. Hey, listen. I haven't seen the financials, but I do know that you have a really sweet pad in Manhattan Beach. Not to dox you. I think everybody knows that, right?
I think everybody's pretty well aware.
Really nice restoration hardware furniture. I talk about that all the time. It's really nicely decorated. I haven't been to Big Cat's pad. He never invited me, but I do think he's probably pretty wealthy. We could take this to a poll. Back on topic, though, the Rams still have to play.
That gets so weird.
The Rams still have to play your beautiful ex-girlfriend who's wildly inconsistent in the Bears. The Ravens, they still have the Cardinals at the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, the Niners, and then the Cardinals again. The Rams it's over, man, and I hate that because we'll get to that in a little bit. The ramifications they go further than just this season.
Well, they spend money. I would argue at times irresponsibly, and they have so much money tied up into Cooks, who's always overrated, Gurley, who is not overrated but should have never gotten that contract. If you want to tell me that Goff deserves that money because they like the way he carries himself and that they had kind of the money sitting around with the way the cap works, it was like we might as well just spend it now and kind of front load this thing with him. And then Donald, it doesn't. Like Donald's amazing, but then you add Jalen Ramsey to this whole thing. It's like, so what are you going to do? You're going to have those 5 guys under massive numbers? And Ramsey said all the right things. We'll see if that plays itself out in the next offseason. But it's an offensive line that traded for Austin Corbett at one point, where the Browns were like, the Browns need offensive line help, and it didn't work out in Cleveland. And, was it Noteboom, the guy who got hurt? So I look at them and go, this is a weird thing where overnight it can feel like in the beginning of the year, they were 3-0 and no one liked them because the expectation was this is a Super Bowl winning team, right? Like they were being held to a higher standard than just, hey, cool, our team is 3-0. But I think everybody kind of collectively, especially being out here in Los Angeles, where it was like, oh man, everybody's just kind of about this Rams team. And guess what? Now they're 5-4 and everybody was kind of right. And yes, the Steelers are sneaky better than anyone would have ever thought after some of their down moments this year and having to watch the early Mason Rudolph thing. But the Rams are going to have to get real creative here, trying to keep all of those guys at that number. And even though I like their front office, I really like McVay a lot. I'm just a little surprised when you add up the money to their top guys, you go, did you think this was going to be a good plan? Because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, and maybe I'm just playing the result, but I don't think I am.
No, I don't think you are. And we could just do this now since plane ride we stumbled onto it. This game, kind of killed one team and gave one team life. And as you mentioned, Pittsburgh's in it, and like all Pittsburgh has done, all Pittsburgh has done since that 33 loss. The Ben IR thing, Minka Fitzpatrick, and we all stuck up our nose at that trade because we're like, well, you guys are going to suck, so you're giving him a great draft pick. He's playing that draft pick into a much less attractive spot for the Dolphins.
See, I didn't hate that because I was like, if you just think Minka's this good and you have 2 years of control, like what's wrong with that?
Well, listen, there's nothing wrong.
He's been unbelievable, by the way.
It turns out that they fleeced the Dolphins because he is a DPOY candidate, and I'm looking at what he's done. I think everybody's seen it by now. 5 picks, bunch of tackles. They're 5-2. The explosive plays have gone way down. In the first couple of weeks, they had given up 21. They've given up 13 since he's been there in 7 games. And by the way, that tied into last night. The Rams, who were this juggernaut, how do you go from that Kansas City Chiefs game last year to what you saw last night where they got 0 explosive plays and the Steelers with Mason Rudolph have 2? And the Steelers are they're like a farm for unheralded, young, talented receivers. These guys are making plays left and right, and teams are going to be afraid to play the Steelers. I mean, if they can manage the quarterback situation, get things in third manageable, all they've done since all that happened was they had a 2-point loss to Seattle, 4-point loss to San Francisco, 3-point loss to somebody else. They beat the Chargers, they beat the Rams and the Colts, so they're losing some close ball games, and to good teams, and they're reeling off a couple wins here that don't look so bad. And I know the Colts had a backup quarterback. Chargers are who they are, but these wins are hard to come by, and Tomlin's done a really good job. This might be his best job he's done yet. In preseason or in the offseason, they addressed the middle of field issues in the draft. They got Barron for sub packages. They improved the back end, and the edge rush has been really good because the time is better for them. And Watts obviously turned into a hell of a player in his own right. Everybody talks about JJ, understandably, but TJ is a different type of player, and he has been fun to watch. And Bud Dupree is a guy I like a lot, who's finally coming around statistically.
Definitely.
So people can see now and just get off him a little bit and see that he does a lot to disrupt football games without doing the big sack numbers. But this year, he's got a shot at double digits. And if you looked at like some of those sacks last night, TJ had one. Everybody's looking at TJ. Look at what Bud Dupree did to Whitworth. I mean, he was putting that helmet down and he was moving people out of the club. And again, that pass rush with the Rams O-line under siege, 15 drives now, 0 touchdowns for the Rams. Yesterday, 19 in a row total. 306 yards, that's nothing. 9 QB hits, that's bad. Steelers have been good getting after the passer. So as you look at Buffalo fading and Indy fading because of injuries, Pittsburgh could slide in. They're going to ruin somebody's year. I don't think they make a run, but they're the perfect ruin your year team.
Yeah, and if you want to do this quick, because I want to move on from Pittsburgh here, because we've done a lot on it. It's just that Pittsburgh, again, this schedule, it's the schedule stupid is something I said all the time on the radio show where we go like, what's up with this team? How come they're this? Or why is this happening now? Hey, I thought they were good. Oh, well, guess what? The schedule got a lot tougher. Well, why were they, so when somebody says, oh, people don't pay attention to San Francisco enough, well, it was because the schedule was really easy and they hadn't won, I don't know, 1 million Super Bowls like the Patriots in the last decade plus. So
I don't know.
Yeah, but I just, whenever anybody does that, it'll be like,
that.
Hey, so-and-so, like, how come you're saying this about this quarterback, but you're not saying it about Brady? Oh, I don't know, because maybe Brady's going to be some.
People contradict themselves, and I hate going down this this
I don't
road,
want
but people contradict themselves there with Cousins or somebody like him, because if he balls out, then history is relevant. His history of implosion is relevant. But if the team you want to be good is not getting talked about as much as the Pats say, then history is irrelevant. So, yeah, pick one.
Because Pittsburgh, these are their first 3 games. At New England, Seattle, where they were right in it, and then at San Francisco with Rudolph, and that game was kind of ugly both ways offensively for both those teams. But you could argue they're playing 3 of the 5 best teams in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. They lost to the Ravens by 3. That was the team. They lost.
They should have won that game.
They beat the Bengals 27-3, and they lost the Ravens, a game that you mentioned they should have won. So this is a team that if they figure it out, like as this team gets better through the year, because that's what they're doing, they're already battle tested. The weather's going to get bad in Pittsburgh. It's not going to be a fun place for people to play late in the year. And they will ruin somebody's year at some point. And about the Rams, they're a defensive football team. Offense sells stadium tickets better than defense, especially in L.A.
No doubt. And they have now, I think the number I saw this morning was 19 straight possessions without getting into the end zone. So,
it's crazy.
And, Cincinnati, everybody gets right with them. You start digging into how bad they are. And it's not a knock on Baltimore, because we're going to get to Lamar's unbelievable day again here shortly. All right, so your worst plane ride, I went Chiefs. You get Mahomes back. Their offensive line's a mess. Derrick Henry was the star in that game, despite some of the Tannehill stuff. And I love that Tennessee team in that they do have a toughness. And it's not just because Vrabel's got the Selleck thing going on the sideline with the puffy vest, who kind of looks like your buddy who went to Choate but then did steroids like 20 years later and came back for alumni weekend.
That's a regional joke.
Yeah.
I don't got that one.
Yeah. He'd be like, wait a minute. Did he play lax? Like, what happened to him? Be like, oh, I don't know. He's like in Dallas now. He's dating some girl. He's doing pretty well. So here's my point on Tennessee is that they took advantage of that Kansas City run defense that is, we know it's bad, and Mahomes can't carry them all by himself despite all the stuff we saw for them. So they get the kick blocked at the end. They lose. That's the worst one. You have the Rams. I'm going to say the best plane ride is, it's got to be Atlanta. I know it's a short one there from New Orleans, but just to do something where you feel like we come into this thing 1-7 and they're 7-1, and Atlanta dominated New Orleans with a pass rush that we haven't seen from Atlanta all season long.
Mm-hmm.
And they had all their guys active, and Ryan really got the ball out to a bunch of different people. That was not some weird fluky, what was the turnover battle type of thing. For whatever reason, Atlanta rolled into New Orleans and dominated them. So I know a quick jump back to Atlanta, but those guys must have felt pretty good about it, because it does seem like even though everybody had Dan Quinn getting fired, that team hasn't given up on him. People really like Dan Quinn. And so I think even Arthur Blank would like to go, hey, I actually want to keep this guy as my coach, so let's see how the second half of the season goes.
No, they reshuffled some coaches, and he's got to be better defensively. You're a defensive coach. The defense has never been good there, but people love Dan Quinn, so the players are going to play hard for him, and it's hate week. As you would hear down there regionally, they can't stand each other. So it's kind of like college ball. You throw out the records. That's a real rivalry. And throw them out in the NFL. My best plane ride is probably going to be LSU. I'm going to go to college because it was just such a transcendent victory for America. I mean, that's like when it's like when when the Cowboys lose, they joke that everybody's happy. When Bama loses, I think everybody except for Danielson's happy. And by the way, he's like the clocks. the seconds are ticking off. He's like, let's roll that graphic that we had ready of like Bama's road back into the playoffs, which we know will happen. But I just love Ed Orgeron getting on the plane after there's so much about that plane ride that I'm curious about. Do the big-ass state troopers go, like, sit with him? Like, why does the SEC have the scariest, biggest state troopers that all look like they played offensive tackle?
LSU's got one who I think is Coach O's guy, this enormous black guy.
I think he's got the bucket or the hat, the cowboy hat. And I'm just like, that guy could whoop some serious ass. And I know he sits right next to Ed on the plane, probably.
He looks like if Saquon Barkley lifted.
If Saquon lifted, I think you're gonna. I think he looks way more like he's like the nightmare dad for somebody that like is going to try to date the dude's daughter. I mean, like that guy is
huge.
A nightmare.
He's huge.
That guy's
and those guys, like a lot of those guys are just so serious, but I've seen him on the sideline for years. Trust me, he stands out.
I want to be on that plane. I want to see what Coach O eats for dinner. What's his drink of choice? Where did the state troopers sit? And then also how it went down when they landed and he saw that somebody IG lived his post-game speech. So fly on the wall, best plane ride, and it probably had to be a really happy plane ride. I mean, you beat Bama. That's a big deal for them.
So I was down there. I flew into Birmingham on Friday, and then I thought I lucked out because I got a last-minute room in Tuscaloosa. Shout out to $500 a night
Lodge.
What's that? Yeah, I mean,
shout out to the Econo Lodge.
I rolled in; it was like 50 degrees. I was like, "Hey, is heat not included in this $500 a night? What's going on here?" But a lot of my LSU people were up in Birmingham, so it ended up being kind of a tame entree in. And then Saturday, you go into the stadium, and you just don't know. Like I've gone to this game now. My personal record at Alabama-LSU was LSU was 2-9, I think. So I've only missed one game since 2008. And
wait. Your record, your win-loss record?
LSU was 2-9 prior to the win.
You keep an LSU win-loss record from the appearances your boy Russillo makes.
Well, because there was starting to become a rumor
that's
that's like, hey, ever since you kind of jumped on this bandwagon here with this LSU thing the last decade, it hasn't gone great.
You're the black cat.
Yeah, but then a black cat did run behind me at the corner of the end zone.
That was where you were?
The cat ran right behind me and then into the stands. Like the thing went crazy. So I was like,
bro,
something's
and
up.
was definitely a copycat situation, no pun intended, because like
it was
the coincidence there.
And
it
then
was definitely a sign.
An LSU staffer comes up to me and he was wearing his 2011 credential from the last time they beat him, the 9-6 game that I was there for that night. And you know, I mean, the guys know. Like, I don't hate Bama. I mean, Bama's been nothing but awesome. I have a ton of respect for Saban, but you know, I've sort of grown to have this affinity for LSU now, more and more. The people, the state. I love everything about it. I always joke that I
love the state.
I don't know. I love the people. I love the whole thing.
LSU
about it.
was
really
awesome. That was the one school. That was the school I wanted to go to.
Did they offer you?
But no, I didn't think I was good enough. I remember the day I got a letter from.
Probably not fast enough. You don't have SEC speed.
That was what I thought. So I bought into the bullshit. And so one day, as I'm going in 10th grade year to the local Shell station to grab some BC powder before a varsity basketball game, BC powder. I used to just crush BC powder. I don't know if that was very good for this segment's not brought to you by BC powder. I vividly remember the first letter I ever got from a major college was LSU. Totally typed out with like a stamped signature. And I was like, these guys like me. And then, of course, I started watching their games more. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm fast enough. Ended up at Virginia, ended up to be a good choice. But I say that to say this is a game I've always wanted to go to. Always wanted to see the atmosphere.
Year. You can come to Baton Rouge next year.
I turned down a trip this weekend on a PJ to Tuscaloosa and out the same day because I love my family. I want to spend time with my children. That's a family flex. I swear to you.
Who did you turn the private jet down from?
I can't say that.
Oh, all right.
But
do I know the person?
I don't know if you know the person, but I will say this. I will say that it just wasn't the right time. It's been a long week. This pod stuff is exhausting. I want to be in the right frame of mind when I see that thing in person. I can't wait to go and check it out. I mean, you got so many first rounders on that field. It's insane. I had a scout buddy text me. He's like, I count like 12 or 14 first rounders potentially on the field here. I mean, it's insane.
It was, and that's, look, it's this rivalry, and maybe some LSU people tell you they actually hate Florida more, but there's also an element from LSU where they look across the sideline and see a guy in Saban that should have never left Baton Rouge, but they're happy with their guy now in Coach O. And just a couple things. So as this guy, a staffer, comes up to me, I was like, oh, look at that, you got your 11 pass. And he goes, hey, I'll talk to you after we kick their ass. That guy's never said that to me ever before about any. I've heard guys around the team be like, hey, we feel good. We feel this. Hey, good week of practice. These guys are going to buy in. And then they go out and get shut out at home. But LSU is the better team, start to finish. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I cannot tell you, like, watching him in person, he's not the home run guy. He's not that top end speed guy. His side to side, his footwork in the hole is off the charts. It is insane. So when he runs, and if he runs a slow time and he goes in like the second or third round, whatever, somebody's going to be getting a steal because he's an absolute brick house, and his feet are, I cannot, it's just unbelievable watching his feet. And then yet here's Bama, who scored on a punt return when they weren't supposed to punt it to Waddle, and then on a deep ball to Devontae past Stingley, where Stingley looked in, because I was on that sideline, and he looked in at the sideline either for a call or someone said something to him. I'm not quite sure what happened. And Smith just ran past him, and Tua hit him on the big play. So that was really one mistake and then a punt return for the only offense for Alabama for the first 40 minutes of that game. And then as the game, I'm starting to have this other thing watching all these games where I go, I wonder if these coaches, and this is always kind of the Gundy thing where it's like all that stuff we're running, all these plays to get everybody moving around, going side to side, is because of that fourth quarter. But more and more of these games, I don't know if any players, even Bama and LSU athletes, if these guys can keep up physically at the last 15 to 20 minute mark, because it just feels like there's so many of these games that open up. Maybe it's the play calling. This is only a working theory, but as I try to figure out like who's good on defense, because Bama was still really good opponents' yards per play. LSU was 16th. Now they're 30th after the Bama game. But we get into this thing where we want to pretend no one else plays defense except for our favorite teams. But it's not just an SEC thing. There are other schools where I wonder late in a game if it's a really physical, big-time kind of game that the body just starts wearing down and you're just not the same defensively the last 15 to 20 minutes. And it doesn't mean you're bad defensively. It just means like that's kind of the reality of what football is right now.
Right. What do you put Burrows? Who's your Burrows comp, and how good is he going to be? Put you on,
Doug
on
Williams?
The McShay hot seat.
You don't like the Doug Williams comp?
No, I do. Doug Williams.
I like, that's a joke. I like forcing
I was like, here we go with a cross-racial
that's my thing.
Which never happens to defensive ends, by the way. I'm glad that Bosa both Bosas have showed how good they can be so that I can be unseated as the prototypical white comp.
Yeah, right. They're doing a lot for the culture right now. So that's huge. Burrow, the biggest thing with Burrow, man, is the toughness. It's the toughness. It's the edge. It's what's going on upstairs with him where you buy into it. Yeah. Like how Dilfer always talks about like, this guy's a dude. This guy isn't a dude. Whatever the prerequisite is to be a Dilfer dude, Burrow has all of that stuff. And there's an edge, and just look, when they were going to empty it and he was going to run it right up the middle, you knew it was going to work. You knew it was going to work on one of those late possessions there. And then, Alabama gets another score and you're like, is this really going to happen? Is Bama going to get the chance? Like, is Bama going to get a chance with the ball back here after everything that's happened? Is this actually going to be an option here for Bama to sneak this game out? And you're like, no, Burrow just go down and score again. And that's what happens. So,
quick question before we get off this game. What does it smell like in that stadium? Like, I would imagine it smells like just tension.
There's nothing to peak. There's nothing that'll ever touch the anxiety of the 2011 game, that 9-6 game, because no one could get anything going.
Does it smell like food? Does it smell like booze? Does it smell like?
It was a little chillier, especially once the sun went down. It was cold in the morning. It was in the 30s in the morning. It got to like 50 during the game, and then once the sun was behind the stadium, I don't know. It just smells like the South. Trump was there. Trump, like a ringing endorsement inside of that stadium. And then I told you, like, it was crazy, but there was a section of black guys a little behind the LSU sideline, and they didn't turn around at all.
Good for them.
And
you can believe what you want to believe. I don't want to go down this road because everybody will, I'm getting political on the podcast.
That's okay. Everybody has their stances on it. But, I made a joke to somebody on the sideline. I was like, well, it wasn't like Trump was going to show up to the Cal-Stanford game. So
he wasn't showing up to Cal-Stanford game, and he whiffed in the MLB playoffs. I think it was the World Series. So he had to just keep heading down south. He had to keep heading south.
Yeah, right.
Keep hitting different games until he got an ovation.
Yeah, above the border, but not too far down. So
no, not
yeah.
too
And
far.
I'm just like, I'm observing. There was a bunch of white guys in a fraternity that had a huge Trump poster out front, and you're like, okay, well, there we go. And it was like right in the entrance of the Walk of Champions thing. But as far as the game was concerned, I talked about Clyde, the Burrow thing. I don't have a good comp for you. I still love Tua. I love Tua. I don't know how anybody watches that game. I want to watch it on TV now, but watching it in person, like, I'm all in on Tua. I know the ankle injuries and all that kind of stuff. What he did on 3rd and 19, a 4th and 4, 4th and 2, that guy, I think he's the real deal. And I like him better than Burrow as a pro prospect, which I guess after Tua lost that we can't have it. After the game,
we can't say that. We can't
mayhem, trying to find my way over to Galette's to meet up with a couple of the older LSU alums. And I got hit by a car. But I didn't know I get hit by a car, which is pretty weird.
Struck or tapped?
It was weird. I'll explain it to you. So these two dudes in LSU gear are walking like an opposite direction, and they know they recognize me, but they don't know who I am. They're like, we know we recognize you, but we don't know what the deal is. And they're like, hey, what's up, man? They're like, why are you always picking against LSU? I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, you recognize me, but you don't know who I am, so now you're just assuming. I think they must have thought I was Cannell, who was on one again on Twitter the other night. But
Who's better looking, you or Cannell?
I think it really depends on what you want. Like, do you want rugged, keep it real, or do you want guy who's dressing like he's in high school? So I don't
you dress like you're in high school? Well, I'll tell you what.
Well done.
He was trying to keep it real on those rankings he posted the other night. That was like a meme.
Yeah, right. I mean, the idea that anybody has
and you
4
said I
wins.
miss you. You said I miss you, Danny.
I did. I just said I miss you, Danny. But the idea anybody has 4 wins that are close to what LSU's 4 wins are, I don't want to hear it. I know what the strength of schedule numbers are. And yeah, maybe I'm a little biased, but I thinking LSU deserves to be 1. But if Ohio State played LSU tomorrow, I'm not going to tell you, like, I don't know. Even going in that game last night, I was like, I don't know. I didn't know. I mean, obviously it wasn't last night. It was on Saturday night. So hit by a car, but I was turned as these guys were yelling at me. And then all of a sudden I felt like it felt like I got double kicked in the back of the Achilles in my heels.
Oh,
like,
you got a low.
So I was turned in the van, these 2 guys in a minivan, white guy on his phone, by the way, while he hit me. And I felt like this sort of like just as if somebody pushed at the back of the lower part of my legs there. And I was like, what the, one of those deals. So it didn't hurt. Like, there's some scrapes there. It was uncomfortable, but it processed in such a weird way because I was turned as I was getting yelled at for probably being Cannell that I didn't even get mad. And then another guy saw me. He's like, they just hit you. And I was like, yeah, they did hit me. And then I swore at the guy, but he's already gone. And then somebody else said, like, I can't believe you didn't lose it. I'm like, no, this is one of those things where, hey, if I got hit by a car because a guy shouldn't have hit me, you would go bananas and try to drag him out of the minivan. But it was so weird and surprising. And then the car kept going. And then I was like, wait a minute, I guess I just got clipped a little bit in the back. And it didn't really hurt. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Can we get a make and model?
Gray minivan. That's all I got. Yeah, that's all I got. Not an industrial van.
Be on the lookout for a gray minivan.
Gray minivan.
Tuscaloosa.
Over by the Ramajamma. All right. So
the Ramajamma. What's the second best thing to do in Alabama other than a game at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Well, it's definitely watching DJ Purdy, Galette's main stage, back room, because there's a little VIP section where they put a bunch of the boosters and some of the former athletes, and we were over there. You got to experience it a little bit. But Purdy
on FaceTime, nothing like a club FaceTime where you can't understand or hear what the fuck is going on.
I wanted you to be involved because my boys
I felt involved.
from other parts of the country have met this Purdy dude who DJs, and they bring him out to LSU all the time. And he's intense. He's locked in. He puts on a show. And there was Go DJ as well with the Baton Rouge spelling. So shout out to those guys. And then I was like, all right, it's time to leave. It's time to get out of here.
Shout out to the Carter, the original.
Yeah. What's up with
that?
You playing it right
well,
now?
the Carter was the Carter is synonymous with the freshman year of college for me. So the Carter will always hold a special place in my heart. I'll see it the next game. Well, let's make a date of it next year.
I'm going, so you're in.
Okay. Maybe I'll get another PJ option, and I'll parlay it into we can fit you on the jet.
Yeah, I don't know why that would make any sense logistically for me to head in the opposite direction from Baton Rouge, but the private jet thing is such a nice option that maybe I will. We're real elitists on this podcast today. We're trying to do financial buddy rankings, and now we're talking all private jets.
The private jet. It's when it's there, somebody offers you don't stick your nose up at it. But I love my family, so again, I watch from the comfort of my couch.
Okay. All right. So let's do a little Ravens love and then talk about something that either went over great or poorly, depending on where you're at. But Lamar Jackson now has 2 perfect rating games. He had the first run maybe since like a Mike Vick type run. And the Vick stuff is comparable, except for Lamar might be more accurate. Vick was always, when he was with Atlanta, he was kind of overrated, I thought, as a quarterback because it was so much fun and it was dynamic. And then he wins that playoff game against Green Bay, and then literally nothing happens for the longest time. And he was okay, but I don't think he was necessarily great. And then he went to Philly and he had like an MVP type season. And you're like, this is incredible. But he was always, worried about getting hurt. I don't see Lamar ever getting hit clean. And now I'm starting to think with Baltimore, with an improving defense, their corners have been good. Some of their edge guys have been better. Earl Thomas is there. Like, it wasn't a very good defense. It didn't have any outside guys. But what they're doing with this rushing attack, they're scoring right now. This is the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Okay? They're number 1 in scoring. They're second in yards per game. The defense has jumped up for where it was kind of a bottom third to now, depending on what numbers you want to look at, it could be argued to be a top 10 in some metrics. It's average, as far as yards allowed per game, but that's still all the beginning numbers. But Lamar's become the most fun thing in the NFL, and it really feels like, what can the Ravens do in the playoffs if a rematch does happen with New England? If it does even happen, I'm fascinated to see that. And if this guy can win the MVP. And yes, I know it's against a Cincinnati team that is atrocious. They're the worst defense in the league by a lot of numbers. But, I don't even want to sit here and nitpick at any of it anymore, even though I felt like, week 5 or 6, the passing numbers still quite weren't the way people were talking about it, but it doesn't even matter with what they're doing with this offense.
No, I'm on board. I'm on board with the Ravens. I said it last week or 2 weeks ago after that Patriots game, and I caught some heat from some of the Ringer bros in my mentions that I said that Greg Roman, who's done a masterful job, has more to work with Lamar than Cap. And that's not a hot take. I mean, you look at his numbers projected over a 16-game season with what he's done so far, they're superior to Cap's year that went to the Super Bowl. Now, Lamar's yet to do something like that Green Bay game in the playoffs that year, and Lamar gives them more laterally and more straight line even than Cap. They can do more in the run game, and Cap was a hell of a player there for a stretch. So there's no shade there. I think Lamar and Greg Roman is a scary thing for years to come. Somebody this morning actually, the first time I'd heard it was like, hey, is Greg Roman going to be looked at as a head coach? I don't know that that's necessarily something he's interested in doing, but that's the one thing that at this point could ever hinder Lamar's development to me. The one thing Lamar has as an obstacle that Cap didn't have is Cap took the lead by surprise and by storm. And that Greg Roman phenomenon with Cap's, running wrinkles. And by the way, Cap had a lot more to work with offensively from a standpoint of who to throw the ball to, offensive linemen. That team was built to plug in whoever. And now Baltimore's in a phase where they're building around Lamar. So, again, scary what they could do together. I hope the marriage between Roman and Lamar stays the way it is for years to come, because it's a lot of fun to watch. And you look at the first Cincy game and this Cincy game. This is a team that lost 2 games early, started 2-2, including a loss to the Browns. This is the NFL. Teams change through the year. And that Ingram pickup that I've loved is something I think the Saints are missing in the red zone. I think the Saints are missing it in general. I think that could be the thing, the domino besides Lamar that puts them over the top. And when they see New England again, just remember that New England does not automatically fix problems that reared their head during the regular season. When they lose to a team, they actually have a sub 500 record when they see them in the playoffs. So I don't think they're a team that anybody wants to play right now.
Forget wanting to play them. Would you pick them on the road against New England in a playoff game?
Well, the interesting conversation, I had this convo with Ninko, Rob Ninkovich. So, he made a great point. The reason it's such a bad matchup for New England is that New England's front seven is built, with 250-pound linebackers. And these guys are tremendous downhill. And that's not to take anything away from like a Jamie Collins or a Hightower or a Van Noy, who all have different skill sets and are tremendous football players. Collins is he's the best coverage linebacker in the league. But when your front seven is built for power, and that's how New England's organization in general is built, for power. When I went there as a free agent in 16, I was blown away by how physical the team was, built for strength, not necessarily speed, and defensively especially. When you get those guys running side to side and put them in binds, when you can actually get them running sideways, get them uncomfortable, and then actually run the ball right up the middle, that's where it begins to be a problem for New England. But when you see them in Foxborough in January, inclement weather, it's a 50-50 thing. And a lot of this stuff you do that pro offenses stay away from, like pitches and some of these more exotic run plays that put you at risk with ball security, you do less of it if it's sleeting and it's 36 degrees in Foxborough, or it's snowing or windy and 15 degrees. Like that's the X factor for me, is the weather. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens leapfrog them and get home field. I'm just like, that's with New England's next 4 to 6 weeks, we'll know what's real and what's not. We really will. And that will affect the outcome of the AFC with home field advantage.
Here we go. Irresponsible question of the week. You ready?
I'm always ready for an irresponsible question.
Chris, will the Clippers be back here Sunday playing a Game 7?
What?
Your feeling about, your level of confidence that you'll be back here again.
What you think? I'm on the team. What you want me to say? Nah, it's over. That's what you want to hear? Yes. Come on, man. You've been doing this long enough. Seriously, right?
If you can expand upon that.
No, I don't know. Everybody in here laughing for a reason.
Is Mahomes the problem? No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to do that so bad. I want to do that. Next on Get Up.
You should have let it. You should have sold it more.
I know. Okay. Is Kellen Moore too light in the chest to be a football coach? He has sloping shoulders. It worries me.
It's his shoulders. Well, listen, Kellen Moore may be bad built, but Kellen Moore was a real football player.
Yes, he was. Huge numbers.
So, listen, you have to respect Kellen Moore's football playing prowess over his dad bod, his early onset dad bod. Like, at the end of the day, there have been many great coaches who didn't have the greatest physiques. The GOAT, not exactly built like Lawrence Taylor.
Bill?
Yeah, I mean, who are the best coaches in history, bro? Like, not a ton of them were Ron Rivera.
So Shula had some size on him. He was a football guy.
Was he bigger than you think?
Yeah.
This deceptive size?
One of my all-time favorites is Shula telling me how much he loved watching the TV show during the day. That's a long time ago.
Did he say that?
Yeah.
He said that. Did he think you were Danny? So he likes Danny. He likes Danny a lot.
He's like, hey, you played at Florida State. You get it. And I was like, I just went with it. I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, there's a couple of football guys over here.
I think Kellen Moore is a really bright young mind. And I tend to believe that when they get conservative and they tighten up, it's not him. That's the head coach taking the reins. That's my theory.
Okay, so it's not the shoulders.
It's definitely not the shoulders. Listen, as I said, I've had a number of very physically imposing coaches who played in the league, and it's just like this in the media. just because you played in the league doesn't mean you can just rest on your laurels and be a great coach or talk about football. And that's a trap some of us players fall into. I hope I don't. I'm sure I've done it at some points, but coaches do the same thing. An early onset dad bod is not going to, I mean, this guy's going to be a head coach one day. It's just the way this thing goes now.
Okay. All right. Good. Look, it's an irresponsible question. It doesn't even mean I believe it. I just don't like these compression kind of long sleeve things he's rocking because it's not complimenting his body.
Are we hiding something with that?
No, we need, it's not hiding enough is my point. We need something a little bulkier on the sideline.
Okay.
Maybe like a three-quarter, like a quarter zip, not even a three-quarter. They don't make three-quarter zips.
You know how they have body doubles or stunt doubles? You just have a coaching double. That would be an interesting one. I think we could use it in politics, not to get political, and we could use it in coaching. And I think that a model where you have a front man who has an earpiece that could be very physically imposing, charismatic in politics, but you have people who actually know what they're doing behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. I think that that's a system that could work. You wonder if there was ever somebody coaching behind the scenes that we don't know about. Who we'll save this segment.
Yes,
but who would be the most likely coach to have a Wizard of Oz pulling the strings behind the scenes? A coach that's charismatic. You know, Coach O could be one. But of course, in college, it's more about the coordinators and whatnot. But Coach O is a guy that, and I'm sure he's a great coach. His charisma alone and command of the team and personality is something you can't coach. So it would be interesting to me to see if some of these guys that have maximum charisma, but the FBI, football intelligence, is lacking, if we could do a coaching double segment.
You're blowing my mind, and I'm afraid I can't even keep up. I don't know that I have the bandwidth available to even process all this stuff right now.
Well, I didn't drink too much this weekend.
No, that's not even what it is. It's just, by the way, the light show inside of Alabama Stadium where they turn off all the lights, it's unbelievable. Like, it actually is cool. And they start singing.
Is it a seizure risk?
It is. Actually, apparently there was a guy that had, I'm not going to say names here, but there was a sideline guy who suffers from seizures who started losing it while he was covering a game in there.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, listen, I'm all about the Baltimore flicking the lights on and off, but that population down in Alabama has never been to a Dead Mouse show or a Marshmallow show. Is that the other DJ, Marshmallow?
Yeah, Marshmallow, shout out.
Their eyes aren't trained for that sort of stimulation. You can't do that. Not in Tuscaloosa.
So no glow sticks and Zed. You can't. But they start singing Dixieland Delight, and they've got all their own little lyrics to it, and it goes off. And then you get that little LSU section behind the sideline there in the corner, and their band's they're trying to hang on. They're trying. And, they did a hell of a job. It's a free-for-all in there. I can't believe they let people stand where they stand, and people just jumping all over the place. It is very southern and not northeast. Northeast, there'd be all sorts of people yelling at you, being like, "Oh, you can't stand there. You can't do that."
A lot more yellow jackets.
Yeah, there's a bunch of yellow jackets, those CSC dudes.
Yeah,
You'd think that company be around so long they'd get better jackets, but maybe the jackets work because we just referenced that yellow jacket again.
If I see somebody with a yellow jacket, I'm like, I'm not even sure if I'm standing in the right place. If somebody's wearing a yellow raincoat on the street, I'm like, oh, I need to get out of the way. Like, it's almost like embedded. So it works.
It does work. You know what? They can keep the jackets, but the company, those jackets are well known. Okay, we have two more things that we're going to do here. We're going to end with a history lesson, new book, started up. And I think what I may have done here is like that manager that tells you got to hit a sales number that I know you're not going to hit. I may have done that to Chris here because we want to do this thing called Confessionals, like when the guys in the real world would go off into the room and turn on the camera and be like, man, Doug sucks. I really don't know what to say. Some of the other house people are like, I might have to do a house meeting. And
I just wasn't as into it.
That's fine. That probably makes you a better person. But when it was on, there were certain years I'd be like, okay, this crew, I'm in. There were other years where I went, man, it's been like 4 or 5 years. I haven't cared about this. I don't even know if it's on
also,
anymore.
Real World was hot when I was young.
Yeah, I mean, that first one, dude, I was in high school. So, never mind. I do love that the second Real World they ever did, again, you're too young for this, was in Los Angeles. and they brought on like a real guy who was older that had his shit together, and he was the worst character ever because he like worked in the music industry. I think he was foreign, and he may have been 30, but back then he looked 100 to us because we were so young.
I'm looking at the Real World Season 2 cast.
Yeah, and
there's a guy with a cowboy hat.
He kind of sucked.
There's a guy that looks like my buddy Dewey.
Yeah, that's I think the guy that was in the music industry, Dewdrop.
Yeah, I see this guy. He looks like Dewey. He looks like exactly what like Dewey's going to look like, and I wish people listening could see.
Oh my God,
picture.
he was 24 on the show. This whole theory that I've had for years has been totally ripped apart.
I'm going to check and see if he has an IG.
Yeah, check him out now. Man, he looked way older. I think his deal was he just stopped. He was a writer, I guess. I thought he worked in the music industry, but apparently he was a review guy. This is all happening on the fly with our research department, so we apologize to all the listeners right now. But I always thought he was way older because I wanted to do that. I was like, what the real world should do is just throw a 40-year-old in there. Not me, because I wouldn't want to do it now, but it would be hilarious. Just be like, hey, there's a 40-year-old guy in this mix all of a sudden. Where's this guy coming from? Like, what's the deal? Why is our dad here?
They still do the Real World?
I don't even know.
Well, if they do, I think they should have you on.
No, I don't want to do it. I wouldn't want to do it now. God, no.
What about the one where you had to live in a room, like, and you couldn't go outside for a long time?
Was that the movie Split?
No, not a movie. It was a show. It was like everybody had to stay in the house and couldn't leave.
Oh,
it was like
Big
Real
Brother?
World.
Big Brother?
Yeah.
Below
it was like
Deck?
Real World, but more fucked up.
Making the Band was a great reality show.
VH1. I don't do a lot of I never watched it.
Flicker Stick? Come on, dude.
Also never watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Never was into Home Improvement. Never was into what happened to my childhood.
Yeah, what happened to you? Were you not allowed to? Were you guys gluten-free before it was like a real thing?
I was watching like, seriously, I was more into like Total Recall and Terminator, which was probably inappropriate at that age. I was a big fan of Howard the Duck in like 91. You know, that was
weird.
It was an adult, weird movie. And then TV show wise, I used to watch Nick at Night, bro. I was watching like old people shit because I would stay up late, sneak into the other room, watch Mork and Mindy. What was that? What was all that? Did you watch Nick at Night?
Yeah, sometimes back when I was living in the hotel at the beginning of the ESPN thing, and depend on what channels you got, like it was always an option.
I didn't have a normal childhood with like the TV viewing shit.
You didn't come home from school or after practice and like watch a show?
No, because I found sitcoms depressing because that meant like it was like homework time. Like whenever Seinfeld would come on and I was a kid and it would go, brum, 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 I was like, fuck. I'm supposed to be doing homework. Like dinner's ready. I haven't done my homework. You know, that sort of, it was just stressful. I associate it with stress.
There's some real association triggers there, right?
Oh, yeah. Parent-teacher conference meetings, not cool when your dad has to go in and you get the whole, riot act read. And, my dad's 6'5" with a flat top. I don't have some nerdy dad coming home being like, hey, bro, got to pick it up in school. When I was screwing up in school, that was very stressful.
Yeah, that was, trust me, I went through it too. And it sucked. A lot of anxiety.
By the way, he
loved
your defense.
Step it up. What?
He loved your defense of the Vineyard. He got a big kick out of that. But I don't think he was laughing with you.
I'm not trying to say the Vineyard is Charlestown. I just, we may have to have Howie call in at some point. I think he would agree with you. I'm simply saying it's a little more blue collar in the winter than people realize. And that's it. That's all I got to say about that. Okay, so the reason I want to do these confessionals is it's admitting something that you may not do normally, but now we're going to do it. And instead of doing a bunch because we're running behind here and we still have a history lesson, let's just do the best one each. Do you want to do that? Do you want to start with your best one? Something that you're basically saying, you know what, this is kind of something I've been thinking about, and I'm just going to say it now, even though I know I may take some heat for it. You want to do your one best one?
Sure. I mean, like, for me, it's more a collection of little things. Like, I like candy corn. I eat peanut butter sandwiches with no jelly. Not a big peanut butter and jelly guy. Is that controversial?
I can't believe this, but I found somebody else. That's what I do too.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I put jelly on it.
I put a little honey on there sometimes. I also don't like the movie Hell or High Water. even though I love Jeff Bridges. Could not stand the movie 3 Billboards.
I hated 3 Billboards.
Remember the Titans was corny.
Oh my God, this is rapid fire confession. You're just in the room right now going. I love it.
Yeah, I used to eat raw pasta. I used to eat like raw ramen noodles in college. Like I was too lazy to even like just chomping on raw ramen noodles. I went food. Yeah, that was the first thing in my head because I do have some. Another thing is I didn't like the movie The Other Guys, which your ringer contingency was. It's almost like there's a regional bias here. Loved Marky Mark's role. You're staying quiet because you don't want to ruffle the New England feathers.
No, I just the Ringer's way more LA than it is Boston. I can tell you that right now. But
it feels very Boston in my mentions sometimes.
All right. I haven't given The Other Guys enough of a chance. I think I've only watched bits of it, so I don't have an opinion on it.
I didn't give it a chance because, and listen, there's a lot of Marky Mark movies I really like.
Fear
just didn't work for me. Fear is a great one. That would be the first one on my list.
They won't do it as a rewatchables at The Ringer. I'm very upset about this. Fear is incredible.
Why?
Why is it incredible? It's an incredible movie.
Why won't they let you do it at the rewatchables?
Well, the rewatchables isn't really my brand there. It's not my thing. So they invite me to come on to do a rewatchable, but I don't.
Well, can they invite me? Because I love rewatching shit. That's all I do.
If you want to do one, I'm sure we can have you on a rewatchable staff. What do you want to do?
$1 million is all it will cost. Maybe I'd like to rewatch The Other Guys because it started with The Ringer ranking, Will Ferrell movies, and they didn't have the campaign in the top 8, and they had The Other Guys, which was almost single-handedly sabotaged by Marky Mark. Another thing is I think the Bears probably didn't win the Mack trade, even though Khalil Mack has been an 11 out of 10. This just proves that sometimes, even if the player exceeds expectations, the trade from a philosophical standpoint, not so smart.
Wow.
That's my football. And I've been the whole time, I just was slow to jump on hey, look at John Gruden and those guys, they're morons. Khalil Mack's fun to watch on Sunday. Look at him do all this. Look at him do all this stuff. Look at him doing all this stuff.
Yeah, Gruden was in the portal.
Gruden's an idiot. Well, Mack just did another thing. Mack's fucking awesome. You also lost the trade, probably.
It seems so wrong when we brought it up. And I don't want to just do this, though, the Bears aren't good and the Raiders are better than everybody thought. So that meant, and I still can't believe they took a running back, but Jacobs is going to be offensive rookie of the year. He's incredible.
Right.
Right. We got to see what the rest of the picks end up being, though. I think before we can say definitively that Oakland actually won the Mack trade. But the fact that it's even a 1% possibility to bring up is a huge surprise based on where we were just a year ago. Agreed?
Also, yeah, agreed. I agree. Also, as a millennial and somebody who's been accused of being just a massive lib, can't stand the OK Boomer thing. It's so stupid.
Yeah, we didn't get to that in the Lamar tweet.
Your Lamar tweet was well executed, and basically you did a Lamar meme, which I thought was very funny. Some people got fooled. I replied, "Okay, Boomer." Of course, it was just satirical because I'm not a fan. That's very ageist, isn't it?
Yeah. What are we doing? Why are millennials who want to be so inclusive excluding older people?
I'm just saying, there's a lot of nice. There's a lot of nice boomers here in Charlottesville, Virginia that lean very blue, and I think would be very agreeable to the demographic that is a fan of the catchphrase "Okay, Boomer." I get that. I get what it's trying to accomplish, and generally, I get it, but it's kind of ageist.
Kind of.
Just saying.
It is. Although millennials could fight back and be like, "Okay, so wait a minute. You mean your generation, the generation that has been just dumping on us the whole time, and now we have student debt? Cool." By the way, look at this the other day.
Wait. My generation, though, I'm a young man.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about me. I'm aware of our gap, the decade gap.
Are you a boomer technically?
No. God. How old do you think I am? Jesus. Let me just double check, though.
Okay, nice meme, Boomer. Let me double check.
Okay, Boomer meme hurts Gen Z more than the older generation. Yeah, right. I'm like 11 years past it. So just to double check for people on that one. Okay, my confessional is this. I think 90% of the feel-good viral videos are fake. And I know that sucks. And if something makes you feel good, it makes you feel good. I remember I asked Bill Walton once, I go, hey, what do you think players are listening to nowadays? They're probably not listening to Europe 72. And he was like, Ryan, it's not what inspires us. It is that we have the ability to be inspired. And I was like, wow. Whoa.
That is the man there, by the way.
Yeah.
I bet he likes Dark Star.
Yeah, are you kidding me? So
Vicar Shaw, he was there.
He was like, I'm in more of the Motown cover bands. So if you watch a video that's a feel-good video and it makes you feel better or feels some sort of thing or makes your day better, then who am I to suggest to not feel better? But I think a lot of these videos are fake. Like there was one the other day where a woman is at the checkout line trying to buy her groceries, and then all of a sudden some other woman realizes like her car got declined, so she's going to pay for her groceries, and somebody happened to just be filming that. I mean, who would be in the checkout line being like, okay, what's going on with Aniston? Oh, that's a good price on mints. Oh, I don't even have a card here. Let me just see if I can get him to scan the
Let me just film this whole thing.
Let me just film this again. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. 7 ways that you know that he's into you. Okay. Oh, wait. What's going on here? Someone is randomly buying groceries for someone else whose card was declined and then sent out. Because I think what happens is, and this definitely happens, is the good thing happens and it is filmed and it is staged. And I'm not saying this one was, I don't know with a great degree of certainty, but some of the stuff is staged. And then all of a sudden everybody reaches out because we are very sympathetic people. As mean as this country can be at times, it's incredibly sympathetic at times too. It's a very odd combination of a personality for people that are Americans. And
the country has a personality disorder.
No, it's really crazy. It's so well said. But I think a lot of it turns into, what really bums me out. Nothing bums me out more than bummed out kid. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, a bummed out kid who like doesn't have friends. It's the
bullying
saddest,
videos and shit.
The bullying videos bum me out. But who's filming the bullying video? Like what's going on there?
Fucking phone.
Yeah,
get off your phone. Step in, dude.
So we're gonna watch this kid, and then remember the bullying video, and it was a kid. He was crying. He was talking about how he's getting made fun of at school. It's hard. I'm not even a parent. And it's got to be one of the most heartbreaking things ever. And like, one of my weird things is when I transferred in high school, like I was that guy for 2 years who sat by himself. And it was weird because I had always been popular, sports, everything always worked out. And then I'm like, man, I'm one of those dudes that I wouldn't have sat with in junior high. And that's who I am in high school. And I kind of just dealt with it and just was like, whatever, this sucks, but I'll be fine. But if I were a parent and I knew like my kid was the kid that sat by himself at lunch, and you know what? Look, high school's tough and things are going to move. So I want everyone to understand that is as cold as I can be. And, I know how everybody thinks of me and not having kids and all that thing. Like that stuff is heartbreaking.
Is that how everybody
No, but
thinks
people
about
just think
you?
I'm like this.
First
this
thing
like,
they think is like, Ryan, pretty good on the NBA, really good on college basketball or college football as well. Has no kids.
Has no kids. Shows
That's
no emotion.
That's the scouting report on you.
But, there was that one where the kid was crying and the mother's filming it. And then it's like, hey, here's my Venmo. Like, I don't want to see a kid getting beat up at recess with a fucking SoundCloud link after the video. And
yeah, I don't want to see that either.
So
you don't do the SoundCloud after you expose the bullying. And by the way, if you're exposing bullying, put the fucking phone down, maybe set it on the wall and go kick the shit out of the bullies.
So there's a real, I mean,
Ryen Russillo, dry sense of humor, does a Monday Ringer pod, hasn't had a home cooked meal in quite a while. That's the scouting report.
Gets bummed out by bullying videos. So it's just something to think about where I feel like there's this trend now in this country where people are posting these feel-good stories, but they're not doing, their motivations are extremely selfish and I would say duplicitous.
I think I agree with you. I do think it's hard to, you can kind of get an inclination of what the motivation is from the context clues of a video. Like, for instance, the ones that you say are fake. Also, a lot of funny ones are very fake as well. And I can't stand it when I go through the comments and I'm like, y'all are all buying this? Like, y'all are all, I've gotten fooled by viral videos before, but on the regular, because there is a demand for them because people are falling for these fake-ass videos time after time again. And that's one of two things. We want to feel good because there's so much bad news. That's why they're in demand. And two, our ADD doesn't allow us to really analyze these videos, so we take them at face value. The bullying videos are like, that's terrible, but not too many people are like, put the phone down. The good news videos, you're like, okay, well, there's certain things that can be used as an example to inspire people. I get needing to, like when we did a bunch of charitable stuff, I was really insecure about doing things publicly. I think cell phone videos, there's like a fine line you walk to. You got to know if it's like, this is a feel-good story that's going to inspire somebody, or I have no business filming this and it could be done in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we covered it, right? I think we covered it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
I don't want people to not share
One last
stuff.
confession, I don't shampoo a lot. I probably shampoo once a week.
That usually gives your hair a little more body and flair to it, though. You know, if you shampoo.
Yeah, you overdo it, the lettuce.
No,
I don't know. Maybe some people think that's gross.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a styling trick that a lot of dudes right now are going. He gets it. So
I'm on the trend.
Do we want a history lesson? I feel like we've gone long enough. I think we're going to get kicked out of the studio. Should I read more than 20 pages of the Rockefeller bio Titan? Because I
want to hear about Rockefeller's dad real quick.
Big Bill? All right. Let me give you a quick synopsis on Big Bill, because I just started Titan, Chernow's Rockefeller bio. Finance Mark loved it. Non-finance Eben, buddies of mine, also liked it. And Rockefeller just went for it. But I'm in the early stages. We're talking like 1840s here now, wild times. And Big Bill Rockefeller, John Rockefeller's dad, he was like a confidence man. And he would just take his horse and carriage into other towns and pretend he was deaf and have a sign, be like, I'm slow and I'm deaf, and then like get money from people. And then people from like neighboring
and people
towns.
would have filmed it. People would have filmed it if they had cell phones.
They would have. Well done. Great way to tie it all together. So he was getting away with it for a while. And again, I'm a bit of a fraud because I'm only a chapter or two into the book. But
Poser.
Yeah. I just walk around with Titan. Be like, are you reading that? And I just put the bookmark in the back. Like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, and after a while, your rotator cuff gets tired from carrying the 40-pound books you read.
Yeah. So he would go to other towns, and then there was these people that showed up that saw him in one of these towns pulling this scam. He would like sell elixirs, and sometimes he'd be deaf when he go to the other town, sometimes he wasn't. And then he was sitting there at like a church speaking, and people that had seen his deaf routine in another town were like, "Oh my gosh, your turnaround is miraculous." He was like, "Yes, you know."
If Bill was alive today, he'd be a televangelist, or he'd sell vape cartridges cut with vitamin E oil.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's just like what he would do.
Yeah.
Also consider the fact that people in the 1840s, you said wild time, like imagine being really, really exorbitantly wealthy, but still smelling like shit.
Yeah, because it's kind of
hygiene,
impossible. Yeah.
BO, bathing. Like
2 pairs of trousers, like a decade. You know, you weren't going and getting a new set of dungarees just because it was school week.
What are you buying with 1840s money? What's the splurge purchase? Like a clipper ship?
No, God, I was just going to think China. You know, serving
buy
dishes,
China.
Ladles.
Oh,
high-end ladles.
Buy the country of China.
No,
yeah, I guess
no. Yeah, I didn't think. Oh, you're talking like baller brand? I think it was just acreage back then. Like if you were a baller, you just went straight square footage lots. So to finish this, Big Bill.
Let me just get Delaware.
Big Bill would leave the family all the time. Or he would leave his parents' place when he was younger, and then he met up with this chick named Nancy Brown, who apparently was like an 1840s smoke show, but she was an innkeeper, so she would sweep the area. So he was hanging out with her for a while, and then he met this girl Eliza Davison, whose parents were like, "This Big Bill guy sucks." She's like, "Whatever." Yeah. And then I guess there was like a $500 or $1,000 kind of dowry deal where Big Bill was like, "So I get like $1,000 if I marry your daughter." And even though the family didn't want him to, and some of this is loose, right? And so then all of a sudden Nancy's like, "I'm getting kicked to the curb here just because I sweep floors. And this woman has a father that, is going to kick in some cash." And he was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And then he pulled a complete what for on everybody. And he moved Nancy in to their home as a nanny while he was there with his wife. And he had apparently
Oldest trick in the book.
Right. So he had a couple kids with the nanny while she was also taking care of his kids with his actual wife. And that was frowned upon, let me tell you, in the upstate area of New York by the townspeople. But they did move after that. And the mistress thing did not go on forever. But Big Bill was really, that was the kind of guy if Big Bill were around today, he would have courtside seats at Miami Heat games, even though he'd always be a little behind, like on the deposit. And the
for sure, he
guy.
seemed like the guy that was renting his Lamborghini in South Beach. Also, for the record, seems like a bad guy. You can head over to Wikipedia to check that out. Lived to 95.
Yeah, no, he hung out for a long time. I can't wait to find out more about him. I mean, I'm not even scratching the surface here.
Only the good die young is what I'm taking from this Wikipedia entry about his. Not the best dude, but had a lot of ducats.
Okay, but I'm talking about Big Bill, the dad. I'm not talking John.
No, I'm talking about William Rockefeller, man. I'm looking at his marriage and children thing that he had going there. The scandal. Oh, scandal. If you look under scandal, there's some things that are probably too heavy for this segment. Probably a subpar human being.
Yep, I just looked at his first Wikipedia under scandal. I have not gotten to that point in the book yet, so we're going to just leave that one alone.
But you can access it on Wikipedia, which is a great site that we should all support. Please donate to Wikipedia. I never do, but I will start today.
All right. Yeah, haven't got to that point yet, so I don't want to hear from anybody that I left out something because like I said, I'm only 2 chapters in, and that first scandal is a terrible act. So.
It's like the Jeffrey Dahmer biography. It's like, well, he was an interesting kid. I mean, he was a good painter.
Outdoors.
He was always outdoors. And you're like, I don't know what happens on the next 200 pages, but that's what I got on Jeffrey Dahmer so far.
Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting so far. All right, man. Well, this was good. We'll be back next Monday. You can check out all of Chris's work. He's the baseball watcher. Oh, no, excuse me. Hockey watcher, Chris Long.
Yeah.
At Joel19.
Changed.
Joel91, excuse me. I'm at Ryen Russillo, and all of his work is on Chalk YouTube channel.
Yeah, man. Yeah, lots of good content. Show's called Green Light. Well, I don't know if it's good content. You can tell me if it sucks or not.
It's good.
The disclaimer is that if it sucks, you can turn it off. Tuesday and Fridays, I'm on, and check out the Fishbowl as well. On the hockey topic, who's the defending Stanley Cup champion?
St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, it's kind of how I wanted to end the pod.
Yeah, that's cool. Like when you FaceTime me and your dad's friend said Bill Russell would suck today or something, or Wilt Chamberlain would suck. And
yeah,
it was during the Stanley Cup final, and you were like all excited because the Blues, I think, were winning that game, and you're like, hey, go Blues. And then I turned the FaceTime, and it's my brother wearing a Bruins hat and my dad in a Red Sox hat. And you were like, oh, you guys are kind of into this, huh?
Yeah, you're into this hockey thing. Well, so am I. Blues were due. Reigning champs. Till somebody beats them. I did see a Boston tweet that said all your teams are in first place. I would like to point out that the Sox are in third until they prove otherwise. I know it's the offseason. Kind of an inaccurate tweet. And the Blues beat you.
Okay, but they're the northernmost recent champ, World Series champ.
Northernmost recent champ. Good. You did some digging there.
Let's end this.
That was a hard stat to pull up.
We'll talk to you next week. That'll do it for us. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review as much as you possibly can. And I'll be back. I think we got Jared Dudley coming up on this podcast this week. Talk some Lakers.
Wow. On this podcast. Jared Dudley is a funny dude from what I can tell. I look forward to speaking with him.
All right. Sounds good.